Guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula 1. And what do I even say about that race, to be honest with you? That was chaotic, to say the least. I've found a word. Chaotic, but it was only really chaotic for the last 3 laps after that red flag period, wasn't it? Up until that point, it was a bit mundane and it looked like it was going to be a bit predictable as to who was going to be finishing where. But that red flag and those last few laps really put pay to that and flipped the grid on its head pretty much, which was unbelievable to see. So if you've never seen this series before, I rate the drivers out of a possible 10 points if they have a really good Formula 1 weekend, and if they do incredibly badly, then we go all the way down to 0. Bonus points can be awarded if something extra special happens in your race, i.e. an Aston Martin on the podium perhaps. And of course you can have extra special minus points if you go really badly. I don't think there's any of those. I don't think I'm that harsh this time around. But there will be a Palmer of the Week for one certain driver. So you're going to look forward to that. So we're going to kick things off, of course, with the race winner, Sergio Perez, in that Red Bull. And after a poor qualifying, not benefiting from the red flags at all during that Q3 session that had yet another red flag at the end there because Tsunoda binned it in the wall, Sainz binned it in the wall. Everyone just had to rely on the first laps. Once again, another race where the qualifying session is determined via the first laps, and the first laps weren't good enough for Perez, and down he was in 7th place, elevated to 6th as a result of Norris's penalty. And then he stormed through the grid and made his way up into the podium places really early on, leapfrogging Lewis Hamilton in the pit stops courtesy of a Red Bull masterclass. And then, of course, inheriting the lead once it all went wrong for Max. What a shame for Max. We're going to get to him, though. His own little special segment coming right up. Then, of course, we had a red flag period for the incident that Max Verstappen was involved in. And then he got off the line, but not quite as well on the restart as Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton pulled alongside and then went, do you know what? I'm going down that way. So Hamilton went that way, Perez went that way, retook the lead, and there we go. Took his maiden win for the Red Bull team, his second in his career. Absolutely fantastic. Perez did find something this weekend in that Red Bull that the other B team drivers haven't been able to do during their time at Red Bull, and he was really offering something special in terms of being able for Red Bull to pull out a fantastic strategy over the Mercedes boys because Bottas wasn't up there. It was a 2 against 1 once again, but this time it was 2 Red Bulls fighting one sole Mercedes, and it gave Red Bull the upper hand this weekend. Overall, though, fantastic strategy, a great drive through the field by Perez after an unfortunate qualifying. I wouldn't say poor, unfortunate is more accurate. And he was going to be on the podium, he was going to be P2, wasn't he? But inherited the lead once again. And for that reason, I'm going to award him 11. He's getting a bonus point there. It's 11 points to Sergio Perez. Thoroughly deserving of that bonus point because he had to make a bad qualifying into a good race. You can't get any better than winning, can you? So fantastic effort by him and really helped his team out this weekend, giving Max the cushion that he needs to do. If the race had finished as it would have done, it'd have been a 10-point advantage to Max Verstappen, maybe even 11 if he'd have held on to that fastest lap point. We're never going to know, of course. But yeah, all in all, a fantastic race by Sergio Perez, fully deserving of 11 points. And then we come to Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin. He's back. I said at Monaco, I was like, this is the start of the old Vettel that we know and love. It was so unfortunate in qualifying in Q2 due to a red flag. We had 4 of the bad boys in 3 sessions. Unbelievable stuff. It caught a lot of people out. Vettel was one of them, starting 11th, although really it played into his hand because he could choose the tyres starting in P11. And he did that to his advantage, staying out long on new fresh soft tyres and elevated himself up to P6, P7 on the road on merit, wasn't it? And then fought his way through on the fresher tyres to get himself into 4th position, of course. And then we had the drama for Max, that put him 3rd. We had the red flag, and then we had Hamilton exiting down the escape road at turn 1 on the restart. There he was, P2. Hallelujah. praise the Lord, it's a podium for Aston Martin, it is a podium for Vettel, and I'm so happy because all I keep saying is, yes, I can take the piss out of him, but I'd sooner praise him because I do like Vettel, and I always thought there was something there still. Something. I know I said it was past it, and that's in frustration a lot of the times. I've said it quite a few times this season as well, but Monaco, we just saw something from him, as if something had clicked, the spark had reignited, and here he is in P2, phenomenal effort. So, he's going to get 15 points on the crawl room. It's 5 bonus points. It's 15 points to Sebastian Vettel. And you can't deny it. You cannot deny it. A fantastic strategy from an unfortunate qualifying. Put him up there into the top 5 anyway, which would have been a fantastic result nonetheless. And then a couple of misfortunes ahead. Put him up into that podium position. He had to fight for it. He fought for it and got the best result possible. So well done to Sebastian Vettel. And then we come to Pierre Gasly, his 3rd time on the podium. He's made it a 1-2-3 now. He got 2nd in Brazil, of course. He got 1st place in Monza, and now he's 3rd in Baku. Phenomenal by the AlphaTauri team. A solid weekend by them in picking up 3rd place. Again, benefiting from the drivers around him, but he had a fantastic strategy. Leapfrogging Leclerc after the first initial pit stop phase. Was running round in 5th, and then the misfortune happened ahead, and there he is in 3rd. He kept himself in a solid position after a phenomenal 4th place qualifying. So well done to Pierre Gasly. And for that reason, for Pierre, it is going to be 12 points. I'm going to be maybe not as, cheery, so to speak, as I am with Vettel. Vettel returned to form. Gasly, we knew he's always got that form. Kept a phenomenal qualifying. And made it pay. I know it seems daft that I'm giving Vettel 3 more points than I would for Gasly, even though Gasly had a better weekend overall, you must say. But, you've got to think of the Aston Martin team with that puncture that they had with Stroll, been on the edge, and it's bonus points. I'm happy for Vettel. Let's just leave it at that. I do what I want. I don't know why I'm trying to justify myself. I'm very excited, and I'm loving it. So there you go. 12 points to Pierre Gasly. That doesn't take anything away from the fact that he scored less than Vettel. He had a phenomenal weekend himself, and he thoroughly deserves those 12 points. Next up is, of course, Charlalard his way all the way to a consecutive 2nd pole position after his teammate threw it off into the wall, although Tsunoda slightly did it before him, so we can't really call Ferrari bullshit there because Tsunoda was already in the wall. But nonetheless, fantastic effort by Leclerc there. Unfortunately, during the race, though, he slipped away, didn't he? He was all the way down in 6th, and that was going to be like the best result he was going to get. He got overtaken by the 2 Red Bulls, by Hamilton. During the race, he got leapfrogged by Vettel in the stops and also Gasly, so that put him down into P6, and then the problems ahead elevated him into P4. So a solid weekend, but what could have been? I mean, you've had misfortunes ahead and you've still not finished on the podium from a pole position. We knew the Ferrari really didn't have the pace around here and got lucky with the toe lap that Leclerc was able to have to get the pole position in the end by 2/10. So very fortunate to get the pole, but I'd have still liked to have seen a podium. But I'm not taking anything away from his weekend. He still did a solid job with the car that he had underneath him. It's going to be 9 points to Charlalard. I think that's a solid effort. Really good drive. Happy with that. Can't be a perfect 10. I wanted to see a podium from him. But I can't take away from the fact that the car that he's got, the result that he had in the end, is still fairly solid. Especially when they've been looking a little bit off pace at times. Race pace wasn't there. But nonetheless, another pole position, 9 of his career, and a 4th place finish. I don't think that's bad. And then we come to Lando Norris finishing in P5. And was pretty much P nowhere for the majority of the race, wasn't he? Qualified in P6, but then got a 3-place grid penalty for ignoring red flags. To be honest, I was expecting that to be a slam dunk back of the grid start or even a pit lane start, because they take very unkindly, don't they? They don't like things going wrong, especially during red flag infringements. So very lucky to get away with 3 places. Thoroughly deserved, though. 3 places is a deserved penalty. Lucky it wasn't more. Started 9th and was there the whole race. He was in 9th. Bottas was sort of battling with him. And then after the restart, really, it all came to life for him. He made some fantastic overtakes right at the end there. Of course, benefited again from the escape road incident by Hamilton. The puncture from Verstappen, of course, elevated him to 7th. And then a couple of good overtakes at the end on those final couple of laps put him into 5th place. So a good race, a good recovery in those last couple of laps. But had it not been for that happening, it'd have been a really poor race by Lando, wouldn't it? It would have been a poor race. So, for that reason, it's going to be a solid 7. I think that's a generous 7. That's not the best we've seen of Lando this weekend, and did really well. Benefited, I would say. He didn't do really well. I think he just did really well to benefit from other people's misfortunes. Had the luck not gone his way, it'd have been down in 9th or 10th, only picking up a couple of points. So, a solid 5th place finish, but not the best drive we've seen from Lando this season. And then we come to Fernando Alonso. I don't know with this one. I genuinely don't know. I apologise if I've got this wrong. Finishing P6, I cannot remember for my life where he was during that race. He pitted for the softs though, didn't he? Did he do a long stint and then pit for softs or something? I can't remember. I can't remember what he did. I cannot remember what he did. He was obscure, but I knew he were there, if that makes sense. I sort of knew he were there, but I didn't really know where he was. He was like 11th or 12th, and here he is in 6th, so I think that's a good result, but I don't know if it could have been more. I don't know if it's a missed opportunities for Alpine or not. I'm really not sure. So I'm going to go with a solid 7, and people are going to be going, oh, you're useless, you didn't know what were happening. I genuinely haven't got a clue, to be honest. Like I said, it was anonymous this weekend. I can't remember what he did, how he did it, how he ended up there. He just sort of crossed the line like, oh yeah, Alonso. Like, I don't know what happened. So he went under the radar. That might have been really skilled. It might have been a really skilled, deliberate ploy to get under the radar. And if it was, it worked. If he had a missed opportunity, he had a missed opportunity. I'm not sure. A solid 7. Well done, Alonso, for 8 points on the board. A good result for Alpine, but could it have been more? I've not got a clue. And then we come to Yuki Tsunoda. I'm thinking this one is a generous score. The qualifying incident was unfortunate. He binned it into the wall in Q3, just pushing too hard, wasn't he, really? It's a big shame. He'd have probably had to abort his lap anyway, because obviously Sainz went down the escape road as well. So, yeah, just a shame. I think that really did put a bit of a mark on his weekend. The first time in Q3, looked to have strong pace, but then in the race, he raced around in the points the whole race, did really well, was running around in 8th, absolutely fantastic. He did lose out to Alonso during that restart period, otherwise he'd have been 6th and not 7th. But 7th nonetheless, I think is a great weekend for the rookie, scoring some more points. First time since Bahrain, the first round of the season. A solid result by AlphaTauri altogether, with a P3 and a P7, so well done to them for that. And I'm going to award Yuki Tsunoda 8 points. Might be a generous 8, I'm thinking that is a generous 8 to be honest with you. But I'd just like to see Tsunoda doing well. That's a boost to his confidence, and it boosts me up thinking, because I said he had the skill, it just took a little bit longer to get there. I was always tipping Spain onwards, he'd start to pick up again after the Bahrain dip. But nonetheless, solid 8 points there to Yuki Tsunoda, and a solid-ish drive. He was moaning on the radio a bit. I was like, oh, come on, Yuki, calm your tits. Fingers crossed he packs that in, otherwise he's not going to have a drive, because people will just get sick of it. But nonetheless, Yuki Tsunoda, a good weekend. 8 points. And then it's Carlos Sainz, and what a shame for Carlos. What a shame for Carlos indeed. Running quite well, was running around roughly where Leclerc was. I think he dropped down to 6th, Sainz down to 8th. And then on the fresh rubbers after he pitted, unfortunately went down the escape road at turn 8. At least he didn't bin it, but then had to reverse. Beep, 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 beep. Back it up, back it up. And I'm quite surprised he didn't get done, actually, because he nearly hit a Haas, didn't he? As he was reversing out. The Haas has to sort of dodge out the way and avoid a reversing Ferrari. So, yeah, maybe something will come of that. Maybe just a slap on the wrist. I mean, you've got to reverse. There's nothing else you can do. But, yeah, kind of just ruined and undid his weekend. He's here scoring a couple of points, which is okay, I guess, but nothing special. So, for that reason, Carlos Sainz, 4 points this weekend. What could have been weekend for Ferrari, really. I wasn't expecting him to hold on to the win by any stretch of the imagination, but I expected him to be a little bit more up there. So unfortunate for Sainz. Good recovery to get some points, but it were your fault to start with. So just 4 points to you. And then we come to Daniel Ricciardo. To be fair, he was running okay. He was running around where Norris was. Norris was 9th. I think he was about 11th was Ricciardo. But fundamentally on that restart, he didn't go forwards. He just stayed where he was, and he stayed 9th. So looks like quite a big deficit towards Norris now compared to, where they were on the restart. Norris jumped forward. Ricciardo stayed where he was. And another quiet weekend by McLaren in terms of both drivers, really. Norris benefited from the restart. Ricciardo didn't. Ricciardo, another poor weekend, unfortunately. A couple of points, a crash as well. Let's not forget that. A lot of drivers were crashing this weekend, though, weren't there? But nonetheless, it's just going to be 4 points to Daniel Ricciardo as well. I don't want to be too critical or too harsh of him. I think, you know, Norris had a poor weekend as well, but just lucked out at the end. Whereas Ricciardo, yeah, there he is. P9, couple of points, fantastic, but nothing to write home about. So just 4 points to Daniel Ricciardo. And then it's time for Kimi Raikkonen. Again, it's a generous score, this, because I'm happy to see him finally score points with P10. I think that's a great, great result by Alfa Romeo. Finishing 10th and 11th again, just like they did last time around, but it's roles reversed. It's Raikkonen picking up the point, Antonio finishing one position behind. But overall, a good race by Raikkonen, and he got the point by overtaking Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi was battling the two McLarens ahead on the restart, and Raikkonen popped round the outside. An opportunistic move there on his teammate, so he could pick up that point, and Giovinazzi couldn't. But because up to that point, Giovinazzi was out racing Raikkonen. So this is going to seem like a generous score, but I'm happy he's got a point on the board at last after the bullshit penalty at Imola, in my opinion. It is 8 points to Kimi Raikkonen. Fair play to him for that. A last-ditch attempt, an opportunistic move on the restart. Put him ahead of his teammate. Deserved that point. So well done to him for that. And another point on the board for Alfa Romeo. Won't be the last we see of the point scoring Alfa Romeos. I'm convinced that this is where they're going to be finishing here and around now for the next few races. Would be nice to see a double points finish from the pair of them, though. But yeah, there you go. 8 points to Kimi Raikkonen. And then it's time for Antonio Giovinazzi, the Italian stallion once again. And as mentioned, finishing behind his teammate as a result of him making a mistake on the restart, unfortunately. Getting himself mixed up with the McLarens. He didn't benefit from that. And Raikkonen just swooped around the outside and went, whoa, I'll be taking those points. Thank you very much. And there he did. So, Giovinazzi, I think it was a solid recovery weekend from the unfortunate crash he had in qualifying. But he should have been so much better, shouldn't he? So I think he should have got the point over Raikkonen fundamentally. He got through, he got ahead of him, he made all the positions up to get there, to get into that position, and then bottle it up on the restart. So a bit of a shame there. But nonetheless, Antonio, I'm going to award him 6 points this weekend. Might be a little bit cruel, but I've been a little bit kind to Giovinazzi in the past as well. So it all evens out over a cruel room season. I wanted him to score that point. Raikkonen got it instead of him, and he had a crash. Raikkonen didn't. So there you go. That is the reason why it's just 6 points to Antonio, but still a solid recovery from a bad qualifying. And then we come to Valtteri Bottas. No, there's no Palmer. That's because he's disqualified. I've got rid of him. He's in the bin. I said you need to improve. He's not improved. He's pissed me off even more. We don't even finish in the points. He qualified P10 after being a human sacrifice to the whole field, including his teammate. So that was Mercedes' fault. But he did nothing in the race, did he, apart from be shite, tumble down the back of the grid, and scored nil points, a bit like England in the Eurovision. So unfortunate there, but there you go. That's just one of those things, Valtteri. You are disqualified for the third time in a row. Or is it the... I can't remember how many seasons of the room wall I've done now. Is it the... He's disqualified anyway. That is the end of that. He's disqualified once again, making it a 100% record of however many series of this I've done. His 100% record has always been disqualified. So there you go. Piss off, Valtteri. And then we come to Mick Schumacher. Difficult to judge the Hazzards this weekend. They've not really got any pace at all, have they, unfortunately? What can we say? Just one of those things. It's going to be 6 to Mick. A quiet race. He out-qualified his teammate once again, of course. Outraced his teammate by quite some margin. On the restart, he lost out to Mazepin, and then I noticed on the final stretch of the last lap, the little bit he got ahead of him. I was like, oh God, that's just so funny. So yeah, 6 points to Mick Schumacher. A difficult one to score him this weekend. We've not seen really any progress from Haas. We know they're not developing the car this year. They're not going to be able to get close to any other car. But a solid race weekend overall. Bit more experience under his belt. Didn't see any flashes of brilliance though, did we? Kept it out of the barrier most notably, and that's the biggest thing because other teams and drivers around him certainly didn't. There's a lot of damage this weekend to a lot of teams. Haas just picking up a bit of damage with a Masi spin-off in FP2, I believe it was. But throughout the rest of the race weekend, they did pretty well. So yeah, 6 points to Mick Schumacher. Difficult one to judge. Kept it on the road. that's about it. And then we come to Mick Schumacher's teammate, which is, of course, Nikita Mazepin. And for this time around, I just thought I'd let Dan, the Mushy Gaming, the guy that does my scores for me, I thought I'd give him free reign on Mazepin. So when we get to the leaderboard at the end, which hasn't yet been done at the time of recording, you'll get to see what Dan scored Mazepin. It's a free reign. I'm having some fun with him, and that's the end of that. Don't worry, it's not any points. It'll just be words, I'm sure. So look forward to seeing that at the end. And then, of course, it's time for Lewis Hamilton.
I'm still a better driver than Mazepin. Come on, fight me.
It had to be, didn't it? It's Palmer of the Week for Lewis Hamilton. And why is it Palmer of the Week for Lewis Hamilton? Because he turned a race that... He snatched defeat from the jaws of victory there, didn't he? He snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. He'd seen his title rival that was leading him go off because of a puncture. And he had a restart where he was second. He'd done all the hard work of getting up the inside of Perez. He's like, oh, here he goes. A win. He's going to turn this 4-point deficit into like a 20-point lead or something daft. And then he forgot to switch a dial on his steering wheel or his brake bias. It was something to do with the braking anyway, and he was still trying to warm his tyres up, so he just went straight on and off he went. And he picked up no points at all. And that is the second error we have seen from Hamilton this year. In Imola, he got incredibly lucky to get it out of that wall, out of the gravel trap, and still finished P2 after the incident between Russell and Bottas red flagged the race, giving him a lap back and a fresh set of tyres. It was unbelievable, wasn't it? So Hamilton... This is the second... When was the last time we've seen Hamilton make so many mistakes in a season? This time around, though, it bit him, and it bit him hard. And this has really cut it. We were thinking the championship swinging right in Hamilton's favour and right back in Mercedes' favour as well. And it just didn't happen. So it has to be Palmer of the Week to Lewis Hamilton. I couldn't believe it. I was watching it, I was like... No way has that just happened. Like, we have never seen this. We were just like, oh, God. In our house, it was like a big, big sigh when we saw Max go off, of course. But I couldn't believe it. I genuinely couldn't believe it when I saw Lewis Hamilton go off. It perplexed me. So, yeah, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, Palmer of the Week to him. And then we come to Nicholas Latifi listening to his team radio saying, stay out, stay out, stay out, while everyone else was going in, to avoid the crashed car of Max Verstappen down the start-finish straight. What a silly boy. It's 0 points to Nick Latifi. I don't even know if he's actually finished here or if he's been disqualified because he had got a 10-second stop-go penalty to serve after the restart. There was only 2 laps, but then his teammate Russell broke down in the pit lane entry, so he couldn't serve his 10-second stop-go. So if they've turned it into a time penalty, he finished 13th and he'll be finishing last. That's why I've got 16th. He was the last of the runners effectively with that penalty on it. I'm sure I'm sounding like a right idiot because that's probably is what happened, but at the time of recording, he's still technically classified 13th, even though there's a penalty to come. So I don't know if they're disqualified him or what. But here he is with 0 points. Couldn't give a toss. You saw everyone else driving into the pit. You're like, I wonder why all the other 12 cars ahead of me have driven straight into the pit lane. I'm not going to bother. And just drove round them. Like, oh, what a knob. What a knob. So yeah, 0 to Nicholas Latifi. Very close to being disqualified as well, I'd like to add. And then we come to the list of retirements that is for... We're not too sure what happened to George Russell. He's the next on this list, the last of the retirements in the race, the first on this list, of course. He didn't take the restart. He did his formation lap and then broke down on pit lane entry in the pit lane. Something obviously fundamentally wrong with that car. A middle of the road 5 for George, keeping it short and sweet for him there. Not much to say about his race. It was a bit obscure. He did a cracking job to get into Q2 once again after he had an engine failure in FP3. The Williams lads, fantastic effort by you guys as well, changing that engine in 2 hours. The benefiting from the red flag that happened in Q1 as well, of course, which is fair play to him. Absolutely fantastic. Bought him a little bit more time. And again, Mr. Saturday, Q2 appearance. We shouldn't be surprised by it, but in the race, once again, the Williams, not really a car to be racing with. It struggles in the wash of other cars around him. And he was running around, sort of with his teammate, behind the Alfa Romeos, but ahead of the Haasers, just in a Williams position, really, and saw nothing of it. It'd have been nice to see what had happened on the restart. Maybe Russell could have got his elbows out there, had nothing to lose with 2 laps to go. I don't think points are ever possible, though. I'm not trying to magic some result out of thin air there. So there it is, just 5 points to Russell. A miscellaneous weekend once again, an anonymous weekend. Only thing that we could take again is another Q2 appearance by a Williams, but that is literally it. Mr. Saturday, not so good on a Sunday. And then we come to Max Verstappen. Oh no, has there ever been so... Oh, do you know what? My heart sank. My heart absolutely sank when I saw that happen. I thought, that's not fair. I know it's racing. We've seen tyre failures happen in the past to a number of drivers, of course, over the years. 2013 British Grand Prix. Last year at the British Grand Prix as well, we had some dramas and some errors there with tyre failures. And it happened once again at Baku. Big questions going to be asked by Pirelli there. Red Bull, of course, saying over the radio to the FIA, which is a fantastic feature that F1 has introduced to the championship this year. It really gives you an insight into what's going on behind the scenes. They just said, look guys, we need a red flag here. We had no indication that was going to happen. We just checked in with Max on the radio. Everything was fine and it just popped. There was no debris there on the track. We have just had a left rear failure of the tyre, sending us out of the race, out of a certain victory as well, and taking 10 points away from Lewis Hamilton there. It was a devastating blow, and some big points lost in the constructors as well, because even though the gaps gained, obviously as a result of no points for Mercedes this weekend, the gap would have been even more had they had a 1-2 finish and then just Hamilton third. So a big blow, really. In some respects, it was great to see that the Red Bulls really pulled the win off, and Aston Martin, the other team that had the other tyre failure, finishing second as well. It was like a consolidation. They definitely deserved that 1-2 there, the way they came across the line. They had misfortunes with their other cars. Max, a fantastic drive. You didn't do anything wrong. Unlucky in qualifying once again to not be able to get your running due to red flags. Purple in Sector 1, purple in Sector 2, and then aborted the lap. So it's going to be 10 points to Max Verstappen. I don't normally do that to retirements, but that was not his fault. And he drove a flawless race, and a masterclass strategy by Red Bull put him in that position. And his teammate was behind him for a good little comfort gap there to his title rival Hamilton. It had been some big points away from Lewis Hamilton once again. In the end, Hamilton blew it, so the points still remain the same, but could have been a big opportunity there for Red Bull and for Max Verstappen. So shame for them. 10 points to Max. I don't like to see that happen to any driver. I hate punctures because it's something that's out of everyone's hands seemingly. And it was lucky this weekend we've seen Stroll off down the straight. We saw Max off down the straight. If either of those cars had swung back onto the racing line, we could have seen some serious incidents. So big questions need to be asked by the FIA to Pirelli, and we need to get that sorted out, because that is not something we like to see for any driver having to go through that flat out down a straight doing 200 plus miles an hour, and then all of a sudden no control over your car and you're off into a barrier. Not good, not nice to see. Didn't enjoy that one bit. Yeah, what a shame. What a shame to Max Verstappen. And as mentioned, I've already touched on Stroll. A bad failure for him as well. He was the first to suffer from the tyre failure. There were maybe sighting debris earlier in the race. There was something like a branch, wasn't there? A tree branch at turn 15 that a couple of the drivers cut earlier on in the race. Max and Perez actually did it, didn't they? And that's what cost Leclerc, because he dodged around and avoided that at the start, which obviously put him behind Hamilton. But so, you know, people were sighting debris, but then when we saw it happen to Max, we're like, no, there's something going on here with the tyres once again. The structure too hard, the compound too soft, who knows? But nonetheless, it's 5 points to Stroll. It was looking like he was going to have a good recovery drive from a crash in qualifying. Maybe in the points, verge of top 10, top 8 perhaps, something like that. Wasn't going to be anything special, but certainly didn't deserve to go out the way he did. So 5 points to Stroll. And then last but by no means least, Mr. Esteban Ocon, 5 points to him. Engine failure early on. He got misfortunes of red flags in qualifying, which put him out in Q2. So I can't really judge his race weekend at all. So as always, just a middle of the road 5 with someone I can't judge. He missed out on some potentially big opportunities there to be up there with his teammate, and wasn't to be. So there you go, 5 points to Esteban Ocon. Sorry it couldn't be more. A really unfortunate race weekend for him this week. So there we have it, guys. That was the runners and riders of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix at Baku. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high, any too low? And as always, the results are on the screen now for the Cruel Room Championship. Any climbers there? Any gains? Are you surprised by any? What have we scored? Nikita Mazepin, more importantly. What has Mushy Gaming scored him? He's got free reign of him for the rest of the season. I'm giving him that title. As always, thanks a lot, not just to Dan Mushy Gaming, but also to F1 Games PlayStation Mr. Day for the Palmer of the Week skits that you all know and love by now. And thank you also so much for watching. Any comments down below, let me know. I'll look forward to replying to as many of you as I can. Those comment sections are getting a bit out of hand at times, it seems, and they seem to be taking a life on their own, but I don't mind it. That's all part of the fun. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and as always, much love.